As the great Buddha once wisely said, the mind is everything, what you think you become. When life feels uncertain, when the future is blurry and your heart is heavy, it's not always the situation that drowns you. It's your own mind, the endless thoughts, the imagined fears, the weight of what if. In these moments, your mind becomes the battlefield, and the real struggle is not outside of you, it's within. But Buddhism offers something rare in today's chaotic world, a way back to stillness, even while the storm rages on. It teaches us that peace isn't something you chase or find in the outside world. It's something you return to, a quiet place inside you that never left, only forgotten. In this video, we'll walk a path rooted in ancient wisdom, a path that shows you how to breathe again, how to let go, and how to stop being at war with your own thoughts. Take a deep breath. This is your moment of return. 1. Your thoughts are not always the truth. One of the most powerful teachings in Buddhism is that your mind is not always your friend. It doesn't always tell the truth. In fact, the Buddha often described the mind as a wild monkey, jumping from one fear to another, constantly making up stories based on fear, insecurity, and past pain. When you're going through hard times, your thoughts can become especially loud and convincing. You may hear things in your head like, "I'll never make it," "I'm not good enough," "Everything is falling apart." But here's the truth. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's real. Thoughts are not facts. They are mental habits, patterns your brain has repeated over time, often rooted in fear, not truth. Buddhism teaches us to become observers of our thoughts rather than believers in them. Instead of getting pulled into every negative thought, you can take a step back and simply notice it. Imagine your thoughts as clouds in the sky. Some are dark and heavy, some are light and fluffy, but none of them stay forever, and none of them are the sky itself. You are the sky, your awareness, your presence, your inner stillness. That is your true nature. The clouds are just passing moods. So when a worried or fearful thought comes, practice saying, that's just a thought. It's not who I am. It's not the full truth. Take a deep breath. Let it pass without reacting to it. This practice, called mindfulness, is like learning to sit beside a rushing river without jumping in. The more you recognize your thoughts as temporary and separate from your true self, the less power they have over you, and slowly you'll find a quiet confidence growing inside, one that no fearful thought can destroy. 2. Focus on the present, not the prediction. One of the main reasons we worry so much is because we leave the present moment and get lost in the future. We start imagining everything that could go wrong. What if I lose everything? What if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough to handle this? These thoughts create anxiety, not because they're happening now, but because our mind is making predictions. But Buddhism teaches us something simple and powerful. The future does not exist yet. The only thing that is real is this moment, right here, right now. The present moment is the safest place you can be. It's where your breath is. It's where your body is. It's where peace lives. When you anchor yourself in the now, even just for a few minutes, your mind slows down. You begin to realize that in this moment, you are okay. You are breathing. You are alive. You are safe. It's important to understand that worry is usually not about what is happening now. It's about what might happen later. But the future is just a mental movie. It's not happening yet. And most of the time, the things we worry about never even come true. So instead of trying to predict the future or control what hasn't happened, practice returning to the now. Buddhism encourages simple methods for this, like mindful breathing, listening deeply to your surroundings, or paying attention to what your body feels. When your mind begins to spin with fear, ask yourself, What is actually happening right now? Am I okay in this moment? Can I take one mindful breath? These small practices pull you out of the storm of what-ifs and back into the calm of what is. Because the truth is, you don't need to figure out the next 5 steps. You just need to take the next breath. And in doing that, you give your nervous system a chance to relax, your heart a chance to open, and your soul a chance to rest. First, you stop drowning in imaginary futures and start living in real peace. 3, you can't control everything, but you can control this. One of the biggest sources of worry and stress is the desire to control everything around us. We want things to go according to plan. We want people to treat us a certain way. We want our efforts to guarantee success. But life rarely listens to our plans. The weather changes. People disappoint us. Situations fall apart. Unexpected problems show up without warning. And when things don't go how we imagined, we feel helpless, frustrated, or scared. But Buddhism teaches us a life-changing truth. Trying to control everything is a cause of suffering. Why? Because control is an illusion. The more you try to grip tightly, the more things slip out of your hands. It's like holding sand in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more you lose. Real peace doesn't come from controlling the outside world. It comes from mastering your inner world. Here's what you can control: your breath, your response, your mindset, your energy, your actions, your presence. You can't stop the storm, but you can choose to stand calmly in the rain. You can't stop people from saying hurtful things, but you can choose not to let their words poison your heart. You can't guarantee success, but you can give your best, stay present, and let go of the outcome. In Buddhism, this practice is called equanimity, a balanced, peaceful mind that stays steady even when life feels chaotic. It doesn't mean you give up or stop caring. It means you shift your energy from controlling to responding wisely. For example, when someone speaks with anger, you can choose to breathe instead of react. When your plans fall apart, you can choose to trust that a new path may be opening. When uncertainty appears, you can choose faith over panic. This isn't easy, but the more you practice it, the more you realize how powerful you really are. Not because you control the world, but because you don't let the world control your peace. So when your heart feels overwhelmed, remind yourself gently, I don't need to control everything. I only need to control how I respond. That's where your strength lives. That's where worry begins to fade. And that's where true inner freedom begins. For your worst days still built you. It's easy to look back on the hardest moments of your life and wish they had never happened. When you were at your lowest, whether it was facing loss, heartbreak, failure, or disappointment, you probably felt broken, alone, and unsure if you could ever recover. But here's a truth that Buddhism teaches us. Those painful moments were not wasted. They were the bricks that built your strength, your compassion, and your wisdom. Think about a seed pushing its way through dark, heavy soil. At first, it feels the weight of earth pressing down on it. It might struggle and crack, but without that pressure, it could never sprout. Those very forces that felt like they were crushing it also gave it the power to grow upward toward the light. In much the same way, your worst days pressed on you, but they also pushed you to become more resilient. Every time you experienced suffering, you had to face difficult feelings, grief, anger, fear. You may have wanted to run away, blame someone else, or give up entirely. But when you stayed present with your pain, when you acknowledged it instead of hiding from it, you learned something invaluable about yourself. You discovered how deep your capacity to heal could be. You uncovered hidden strengths you didn't know you had. You learned that even when you felt powerless, you still had choices. The choice to breathe, to continue, to reach for hope. In Buddhism, This process of transforming suffering into wisdom is called turning poison into medicine. Just as a skilled alchemist turns a harmful substance into something healing, you turn hardship into understanding, empathy, and inner peace. Your worst days taught you humility because you learned that you are not in control of everything. They taught you compassion because you now know what it feels like to hurt, and you can extend kindness to others in pain. They taught you patience because healing never happens overnight. And they taught you gratitude because when you finally emerged on the other side, you saw life's simple blessings with fresh eyes. So, the next time you're tempted to despise the past, remember this. Each painful chapter of your life played an essential role in shaping who you are today. Without the struggles, you wouldn't appreciate peace. Without the failures, you wouldn't value success. And without the low points, you might never reach for something higher. Embrace your history as a teacher, not an enemy. Bow to the lessons learned, even the harsh ones, because in Buddhism, every moment of suffering is an opportunity to awaken to your own strength, compassion, and the unshakable peace that lives within you. 5. Not everything deserves a reaction. When life throws challenges your way, insults from others, unexpected setbacks, or moments of self-doubt, it's natural to feel an immediate urge to respond. Our minds are wired to react swiftly. Someone says something hurtful and we lash back. A problem arises and we panic. Yet Buddhism teaches us that every reaction costs a piece of our peace. If we allow ourselves to be pulled into every conflict, our energy becomes scattered and worry takes root more deeply. Imagine your mind as a vast, calm lake. When a pebble is thrown, ripples appear. But if the lake remains tranquil, the ripples eventually subside. However, if the lake's surface is already turbulent, even the smallest pebble creates waves that grow and persist. In the same way, if your mind is agitated, filled with fears, frustrations, and unprocessed emotions, any external pebble, an unkind word, a sudden change in plans, a reminder of a past mistake, can set off a storm of reactions. Buddhist wisdom encourages you to cultivate a state of inner stillness so that minor disturbances don't automatically trigger a response. This doesn't mean you become passive or uncaring. Rather, it means you learn to pause before reacting. In that pause, you create space to choose a wise response instead of an immediate, often knee-jerk reaction. When someone criticizes you harshly, your first impulse might be to defend yourself, to strike back, or to shut down. But if you breathe and observe your feelings, anger, hurt, or shame, without immediately acting on them, you give yourself time to see whether a reaction is truly necessary. Often, you'll realize that the words were more about the speaker's own pain than about you. By choosing not to react, you preserve your peace and your relationships. Consider daily annoyances: a long line at the store, a rude driver cutting you off, a notification that disrupts your focus. None of these moments deserves a full-blown emotional storm. Yet when you allow yourself to react, clenching your fists, clenching your jaw, your heart racing, you carry unnecessary tension. Buddhism teaches mindful awareness. Notice the irritation rising in your chest, recognize the impulse to clench, and then choose to let it pass. You might even silently remind yourself, this is just a passing moment. It does not need my full attention. In doing so, you free up mental and emotional space for things that truly matter. Another source of unnecessary reaction is the inner critic, the voice that judges every misstep, every flawed thought. When you make a mistake at work or fail to meet your own expectations, that inner voice says, "See, you're not good enough." If you react by spiraling into guilt or shame, you create further suffering. Instead, Buddhism invites you to observe that inner judgment as if it were someone else's nickname. Just a voice that doesn't hold the ultimate truth. By not reacting to that critic, you weaken its power. You discover that self-worth isn't defined by every fleeting thought or error. Not everything deserves a reaction, because most disturbances, both external and internal, are temporary. They flicker in and out like passing clouds. If you practice remaining centered, you realize that reacting to each one is like trying to catch every cloud in your hand. You end up exhausted, with hands full of mist. The practice can start small. The next time you feel anger swell, place a gentle hand over your heart. Take 3 deep breaths and let the sensation settle. You might say to yourself, "I acknowledge this feeling, but I do not need to act on it right now." Over time, this pause becomes a habit. You'll find that even when the world seems chaotic, people arguing, plans derailing, unexpected news, you don't immediately lose your balance. Instead, you maintain a calm center. Worry begins to lose its grip because you're no longer fueling every fear with a reaction. Ultimately, Buddhism teaches that true wisdom lies in discernment, knowing which things deserve your attention and energy, and which things are merely passing disturbances. By refusing to react to every impulse, you conserve your inner resources, you protect your heart from needless pain, and you create a steady foundation of peace that even the fiercest storms cannot uproot. 6. Reframe the problem as a path. When you're in the midst of a crisis or struggle, it's natural to see the challenge as something to be avoided or defeated. You may feel trapped by circumstances, believing that the problem is a dead end rather than an opportunity. Yet Buddhism offers a radically different perspective. Every difficulty you face can be a gateway to growth and awakening. Instead of seeing obstacles as roadblocks, you learn to view them as signposts pointing you toward deeper wisdom. Imagine walking through a dense forest and encountering a fallen tree blocking your path. You could stand there, frustrated, convinced that your journey is over, or you could walk alongside the tree, discover a small opening beneath its branches, and continue moving forward. In that narrow gap, you might notice new plants, fresh sunlight filtering through the leaves, or a hidden stream you never would have seen otherwise. The obstacle itself becomes part of your adventure, a lesson in adaptability and perspective. Buddhism calls this process turning poison into medicine. Every problem has within it the seeds of its own solution, if only you're willing to look deeper. When a relationship ends, rather than seeing it as a devastating failure, you can ask yourself, what can I learn about compassion, healthy boundaries, or self-worth from this experience? When your career hits a setback, you can inquire, what hidden talents am I being invited to develop? What new direction might emerge from this challenge? By reframing, you transform the energy of fear and resistance into curiosity and intention. This shift doesn't mean you pretend everything is fine when it's not. It doesn't deny the pain you feel. Instead, it invites you to lean into the discomfort long enough to discover its hidden gifts. Buddhism teaches that suffering reveals the roots of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, the very patterns that keep you trapped in cycles of stress and worry. When you face the hard truth of your pain, you gain insight into why certain situations make you suffer. Perhaps you realize that you've been clinging to a specific outcome, or that you're resisting change because it feels too uncertain. In recognizing these patterns, you begin to loosen their grip. The practice of reframing also involves trusting that the universe has a wisdom beyond your immediate understanding. When the Buddha was confronted with painful questions about life and death, he didn't try to force answers. He sat in silence, observing the nature of reality. In your own life, when a problem arises, pause and breathe before reacting. Notice the story your mind wants to tell, how it might exaggerate the problem or assume there's no way out. Then gently ask, is there another way to see this? What might this circumstance be teaching me? As you cultivate this mindset, you become less reactive and more responsive. You create space to see not only the difficulty, but also the possibility within it. When you reframe challenges as paths, you begin to appreciate the richness of the journey itself. Buddhism emphasizes that life is impermanent and ever-changing. Joy and sorrow flow hand in hand. By embracing this fluidity, you're no longer a passive victim of circumstances, but an active participant in your own awakening. You start to notice how each trial refines your character, strengthens your patience, and enlarges your capacity for compassion. Even when the path feels treacherous, when heartbreak, illness, or failure looms large, you can walk it with intention, knowing that every step brings valuable insight. Over time, this practice of reframing becomes second nature. Difficult situations no longer paralyze you, but invite you to step forward with curiosity. Worry loses its power because you're no longer obsessed with trying to avoid discomfort. Instead, you're focused on learning from it. You trust that every problem, no matter how daunting, holds a lesson that will guide you toward greater clarity and inner peace. In this way, Buddhism transforms suffering into a powerful teacher, showing you that what you once viewed as a closed door was simply an invitation to discover a new path. 7. Faith is the antidote to fear. Fear often thrives in uncertainty. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest, not knowing what lies within. Your mind conjures every possible danger, and your heart pounds with apprehension. In Buddhism, faith, sometimes called saddha in the Pali language, is not blind belief, but an inner confidence rooted in experience. It's the light that helps you move forward even when you cannot see the entire path. When hard times darken your outlook, faith becomes a shield, allowing you to stand tall amid uncertainty. First, understand that fear often arises because the mind tries to predict outcomes it cannot control. When you ask, "What if I fail?" or "What if my worst nightmare comes true?" you are projecting possible futures onto a blank screen. Buddhism teaches that this projection is like watching a scary movie in your mind. Your imagination writes the most frightening script. Faith interrupts this by reminding you that you don't need to know the ending to take the first step. By practicing simple actions like pausing to notice your breath or remembering past times when you overcame challenges, you build an inner trust that life can unfold wisely, even if you don't have all the answers. Next, understand that faith comes from real experience, not from motivational quotes. Think about times in your life when you faced difficulties, maybe an unexpected illness, a broken relationship, or a financial problem, and still found a way through. Remember how, even without seeing the solution at first, you found strength within yourself, resilience, creativity, or the help of friends or strangers. Those moments prove that support is available, sometimes from your own heart, sometimes from the world around you. By recalling these times, you nourish the seed of faith. If I made it through before, I can trust myself to face uncertainty again. Another way Buddhism encourages faith is through the idea of impermanence, anicca. Everything changes, including your circumstances, emotions, and even your body. When you understand that no painful moment lasts forever, you begin to trust the natural flow of life. Just like storms eventually end, your current challenges will pass too. Accepting this truth doesn't mean you become passive. Instead, you recognize that both good and bad times come and go. With this understanding, you can rest more peacefully in the present, knowing that today's fear won't last. Faith also grows through community and the support of wise teachers, whether from scriptures, meditation guides, or caring friends. In ancient Buddhist communities, people would gather to hear the Buddha's teachings and share their experiences. This shared faith reminds you that you are not alone in your struggles. Others have walked similar paths, found ways to heal, and discovered peace. When you hear stories of how meditating monks stayed calm during crises, or how practitioners turned suffering into compassion, it plants a seed in your heart. If they could do it, maybe I can too. These examples strengthen your belief that change and healing are possible. Furthermore, Buddhism teaches that faith and effort go hand in hand. Faith isn't just waiting for miracles, it's actively engaging in practice. Even one sincere breath counted as a meditative step can build your conviction. When fear takes hold of your mind, you can say, "I trust that by returning to my breath, I will find clarity." Each time you do this, every moment you choose mindfulness over panic, you strengthen the bridge between fear and faith. Over time, that bridge becomes strong enough that fear no longer takes control when facing uncertainty. Consider how faith changes your relationship with fear. Instead of seeing fear as an enemy to be defeated, you begin to see it as a messenger, pointing to areas where deeper trust or wisdom is needed. When fear arises, you pause and ask, "What is this fear trying to teach me?" It may reveal hidden attachments, unspoken worries, or forgotten dreams. Faith helps you lean into that message with curiosity rather than avoiding it. You may find that beneath the fear, there's a longing for purpose, a need for connection, or a desire to align with your true values. In this way, faith becomes the cure for fear, not because it magically removes all anxiety, but because it helps you respond in a new way. With faith, you recognize fear's presence and still choose to move forward. You trust that each breath, each moment of presence will bring the clarity you need. Over time, as faith grows, you'll see that fear loses its ability to paralyze you. Instead, it becomes a gentle reminder, urging you to gather your resources, call on your inner strength, and step boldly into the unknown. In the end, these 7 lessons are more than just ideas. They are practical reminders that you can change how you respond to fear and difficulty. Your thoughts are not always truths. The present moment is all you truly possess. You may not control everything, but you can always choose how to respond. In practice, every painful experience has built your resilience. Not every disturbance requires a reaction. Every challenge can teach you something. And faith, grounded in remembering past strengths and trusting in impermanence, will support you when fear arises. As you practice these teachings, you gradually shift from being overwhelmed by outside circumstances to feeling centered in your own inner wisdom. Worry may still come, but it no longer needs to stay. You learn to sit with uncertainty, breathe through it, and move forward with calm assurance. May these principles act as a guide whenever life feels overwhelming. Return to them as often as you need. Read them, reflect on them, and allow them to lead you back to peace. By doing this, you'll find that even in the toughest times, your heart can remain open, your mind clear, and your spirit continue to grow. Thank you for watching. If these lessons spoke to you, take a moment now to breathe deeply, appreciate your progress, and step gently into the next moment.